People from other continents living in Europe, particularly in Germany, have experienced different cultural shocks, and some went as far as making videos, to cover some of these shocks. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am V. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Today I am going to be reacting to an American, talking about the things that shocked him in the US after living in Germany. I am a Nigerian learning about Germany. I fallen in love with Germany so much. Okay, so while watching my reaction, please like the video, share so that more persons can get entertained. Okay, and yeah, like the video. Let's go right into this particular video.
Left Germany and gone to the US in 2 years. So what was it like when we finally did, and which country have we ended up preferring?
2 years. This video was short. I'm going to check that later.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany with our baby, sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. We've been living in Germany for about 3.5 years now, and we hadn't gone back to the US for 2 years. I've of course been making videos about our experiences as Americans living in Germany and the things that surprise or shock us about the differences in culture and way of life here in Germany. But after 2 years of living strictly in Germany and not stepping foot in the US, I think I hadn't realized just how normal life in Germany has started to become for us. Or I've made some videos about things based on our experiences in the US, but had comments from Americans telling me that actually some of those things have changed in the US since we left, and those things that we were used to in the US aren't really a thing anymore. All this to say, when we went back to the US this Christmas and spent a month traveling across the southern United States and then up to the northwestern part of the United States, we were shocked at just how many things shocked us into wild reverse culture shock moments. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today in our video. Habt ihr Bock for our reverse culture shock? So as soon as Aubrey and I landed in the US, we started a shared note on our phones. So that's the list that I'm going to be reading from, and some of this will be just simply things that will be rapid fire given, and I'll briefly mention it, and then some things will require a little bit more of an explanation. So one of the very first things that we noticed as soon as we got off the plane and we started driving around is that storage units are everywhere. So this is something that you do see in Germany, and actually it was kind of funny because whenever we saw these in the US, we thought, wow, there's tons of these, and I don't know if I can think of a single one in Germany that we've ever seen, because I do think that it is kind of a stereotype in Germany that Germans don't keep as much, I guess, extra junk, and if they don't need it, they get rid of it, whereas Americans kind of hoard things sometimes more than Germans do. But as soon as we got off the plane in Germany and we started driving home, we actually did drive by a couple of storage unit businesses. So they do exist in Germany, but just not nearly at the extent that they are in the US.
Oh.
We have on our list written literally just toilets. And Aubrey wrote that one, and ever since she mentioned it to me, I started noticing it more and more, and I realized what she was talking about. So we know that in Germany, you typically will have 2 buttons, a smaller one and a bigger one for the size of flush, for the size of job that you did in the toilet. And in the US, you will typically just have a lever that we've gotten used to on German toilets, pushing a button. And so whenever we would get done using the toilet in the US,
In Nigeria, we have the two of them. Most of the time, it depends on the one you can afford while you are building your house. Okay, so if you can afford the one with the handle, you go for it. And if you cannot afford the one with the handle, the pressy one, you go for that one. Okay.
we would like reach over for either the tank or the wall just out of kind of like instinct and try to like push a button, but there was no button, and then we had to remember.
Sorry, the difference with the one we have in Nigeria now is that the button now, the one that has what you can press and press, the big and small stuff, that one now is on top of the water closet. It's not on the wall. The one I am seeing here is on the wall, but the difference with the ones we have in Nigeria is that they are on the water closet.
That on the side of the tank was a lever. So it was like a different hand action than what we normally would do. So it's just kind of a funny little thing that we didn't realize, wow, after 2 years of doing that, we've really gotten muscle memory of buttons rather than pushing down a flusher. Oh gosh, this next one is something that really surprised Aubrey and I, how like much we have gotten Germanized in this. And that is one, the amount of carpet in American homes. And German homes, we've really gotten used to like no carpet, large rugs and lots of rugs. But that's not the more shocking thing. What we were more shocked by is, of course, the classic Americans wearing shoes inside their homes. We've really gotten used to not wearing shoes inside of our house because we don't want our baby down on the floor where we've stepped in gross things outside or in public bathrooms and then track that in our house. But also we've gotten used to that just when we go to Germans' homes, taking.
Now, sorry, I'm going to be doing more of this talk, and I'm sure that you guys are used to me, saying the things while the video is playing. Okay. Now, I want to get something clear. Is it really necessary to wear shoes inside the house? Because I noticed that in my house, in my apartment, if I walk around for some time without, putting on a slippers, okay, without putting on a slippers, I actually have one on right now. This is my slippers. So if I don't have this on my leg, after some time, after some months, I'll notice that inside my foot will be so hard, like as if I walked on a concrete. So that's why most of the time you can find me wearing slippers. So now I want to get this clear. If you guys don't wear anything, is it that you guys don't wear anything in your houses, or you have a particular kind of, footwear that you wear inside the house? Let me know in the comment section. Guys, if you have watched to this point, please like, share, and leave a comment for me in the comment section. Like the video, very important.
Our shoes off, and it was so surprising how much we were noticing and getting kind of grossed out by all of our family and friends wearing shoes inside their homes. No offense, family and friends, but especially on carpet for some reason. I know like on hard floors we can mop and clean them pretty easily, but carpet, just thinking like more you just vacuum, but you're still getting that stuff down in the grains of the carpet. So seeing shoes on that was really just, couldn't believe how Germanized we got with that while we've been here for the last 2 years. So we spent, of course, a lot of time driving around in the US. And with that, of course, we noticed some driving differences. One being something that we've talked about in so many videos, and Germans are adamant that they have it right, and I'm adamant that they don't have it right, and that is the stoplight placement. It was amazing. Again, driving and being able to comfortably sit and just look across the intersection and see the light just right there in perfect view rather than it being right directly over your head like in Germany. And I know Germans always like to say, well, you can look to the right and you'll see the light on the pole that's more at a comfortable eye level, but what's the purpose of having those extra lights when you have those up there? Just put those across the way and you don't have to have the extra money spent on the lights down on the side. However, with the stoplights, there is something that I swear that the Germans do better, and that is the traffic light sequence. I love the red going to yellow and then green, letting you know to kind of get ready that the light is about to turn green, whereas in the US, it's just red and then surprise green. I feel like if Germany and the US would come together on this, we could have the most superior light system in the world, but unfortunately.
In my country, okay, there used to be numbers, like once the traffic light says stop, there is a countdown, and the number is usually very visible. You can see the countdown, you know that it's about to change to green where you can now go.
We both are making our mistakes there. Real quick, I wanted to remind you guys that a link to our merch shop is in the description below, and also wanted to give a huge big shout out to our patrons over on our Patreon channel for supporting our channel. If you would like to know more ways that you can support our channel, a link to our Patreon is in the description below, but also just simply hitting that like and subscribe button goes a super long way. So thanks so much for doing that. So whenever we went and visited our first family members, we got a hotel room, but the hotel gave us our room keys and then they told us that we were on the second floor. And we got in the elevator, then Aubrey and I both looked at each other while we were trying to figure out what button to push to go up. And it was almost like shocking how confused we were on which button to push because we didn't know what floor to go to. In the US, the ground floor is the first floor, and then the next floor is the second floor. In Germany, the ground floor is the ground floor, and the next floor would be the first floor. So we've gotten really used to now when we're told in Germany that we're on the second floor to go not from the ground floor, not on the next floor, but the next floor that the US would call the third floor. So whenever we were in the US, our first time to be told again the old way that we used to know, and they told us to go to the second floor, we wanted to go to what I guess we would think is the third floor, but then we had to remember that it's actually one floor down. But simply just out of practice of doing this for the last 3.5 years, but 2 years uninterrupted, we had a hard time figuring out which floor to go to in the hotel. And speaking of the hotel, something that I just found hilarious to see again was a room in the hallway that was labeled ice. This is something that you won't see in Germany, but in US hotels, you typically have a room where you have a ice machine so that anybody on that floor
Really?
can always have access to free ice anytime they want it. And usually in your hotel room, you'll have a bucket that is your ice bucket that you'll carry down there that the hotel provides, and then you can have ice in your room. German hotels do not have that because people don't put ice in drinks very often. That was kind of surprising to us. When we were in the US, we were reminded of kind of a quirk, I guess, of the US, and that is how they have not adopted the international standard street signs. In Europe in particular, and Germany, of course, is one of these. They've adopted a very standardized set of street signs, and those are dominated by icons, which of course makes sense because you have a lot of people that don't speak German that are coming through Germany. And so if you have street signs that are just in German, you know, what are they supposed to do, especially when you're driving? So that was one thing that kind of shocked us about the US is that they haven't adopted these street signs that we've gotten really used to seeing, but also how many American street signs are just English text and no icons. When you're driving it down a road going like 45 miles an hour and you're passing by a sign and you have to read multiple lines of English and your English isn't like super good to be able to read it like quickly, it almost makes no sense. We don't have icons so that people can just look at it and just know what they need to know. That signage in the US is very helpful for one demographic, and that is English speakers. Another house difference is the light switches. Most of our light switches that we have seen in Germany are like these square paddles. Whenever we were in the US, where we have a little peg that comes out and it's a switch, is I kind of do this like hand thing where I like either fold in my index finger or I spread my fingers and I take the peg on my middle finger and flick it up, or I'll slap it down with my middle finger whenever I walk in a room. Whenever we came back to Germany, even after only being in the US for a month, I was walking into rooms and I was noticing that I was sticking my hand out and like doing that motion and sticking my middle finger out to flick it or flip it down. And I was just whiffing, you know, just smacking the air and nothing was happening. And it was like, oh yeah, the switches here are paddles that you have to like push. So I've had to like retrain, kind of like slap the paddle up or down, which is a weird, like just how quickly my body, I guess the muscle memory just switches to one switch. One thing that I actually would be interested in you guys letting me know in the comments, do you see gated communities in Germany? I mean, I see, of course, driveways that might have a gate to their driveway, but I haven't seen very many like living communities where to be able to access all of the houses in it where you have a gate. And that was one thing that we noticed in the US is that is a very desired neighborhood. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a sketchy area. It can be in a really nice part of town, but it's almost like a status symbol. So do these exist in Germany? Let me know in the comments below. And in terms of something else that we hadn't remembered is such a desired thing in the US are called culdeacs. Culdeac. It's either cul-de-sac or culdeac. But what these are is basically like a dead end road. There's a circle at the end of the dead end where people can like turn around and be able to drive out. And this is like the most desired location if you're gonna live in an American neighborhood, because you don't have all of the traffic from the main roads inside of a neighborhood or inside of a town. And so it's usually like a very safe place for kids to be able to play. The houses around them can kind of watch over them if they need to. And it's also typically a quieter place since you don't have that traffic. But in Germany, you don't have these like at all. I don't think I've ever seen a cul-de-sac. We have on this list written fire hydrant, something we've talked about before. Just in Germany, you don't really see any fire hydrants because a lot of them are actually underground, whereas in the US, they're all above ground and you see them everywhere. However, in Germany, even when you do see one above ground, it looks different than an American fire hydrant. That's pretty much it. One of the classic things you always hear foreigners talking about in Germany is how pretty much everything is shut down on Sundays. In particular, the most famous one of all, grocery stores. Grocery stores are one of the main things that Americans go to on Sundays. A lot of times that's when they get their grocery shopping done for the week. So that was kind of shocking. There was one moment where we were at some of our family's house on a Saturday and we were sitting around talking and they were talking about food they needed to get for a little party they were going to be throwing. And they said, oh, well, we'll just go tomorrow. And both Aubrey and I initially, like our first reaction was like, oh, tomorrow's Sunday. As if to say like, oh, it's closed. We should go tonight or we should go Monday. But then we were like halfway through saying, oh, tomorrow's, we're in America. You can go on Sunday. And speaking of the grocery store, I did go to a couple different grocery stores with some of my family. I really was shocked by, whenever I got to the checkout line, the speed of things getting done there. So this is very classic. Again, something you always see foreigners talking about in Germany is how in German grocery stores, they just go like zack, 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 just scanning your items and just throwing it down to the end, and you bag yourself. And so you gotta either throw it in the basket real quick and you'll just bag it later because you don't have time to keep up with them and bagging it right then, or you have your bags ready to go and you just throw it in and you know what you're doing quickly. But in the US, man, no joke, I had completely forgotten about what this experience is like. And the checkout guy was just like, so, beep. What are you guys gonna be doing today? Beep. Oh, is this what you're having for dinner? Beep. In the US, you almost always have someone bag your groceries for you, or the checkout person will check out your goods and then bag it or directly bag things as they're checking things.
Yeah, at this point, I'm going to, chip in one or two things real quick. I don't know why Germans have to, like they are so fast. Is it that they are short of they are short of staff, because if you have up to like 10 or let's say 5 um staff at checkouts, attending to customers, they wouldn't have to like speed up things. And I don't think it's necessary to even come to the supermarket with your own bag. Because in my country, okay, the person calculating your stuff for you at the counter literally bags your items for you. You know, there is usually a queue behind you. When they are done with this customer, they bag everything for you, give you your receipt, then you leave. They attend to the next customer rather. And again, in Nigerian stores, supermarkets, they have several checkout points. So I don't understand why, like in Germany, they have to just rush, rush, rush. Are they short of staff? Let me know in the comments down below.
Things out, but then I realized there's nobody here. This guy's gonna be doing it. We're taking half an hour just to scan our goods. So I went ahead and went around. I grabbed some bags, start throwing it in, and I just realized again, man, I am creepily becoming too German. That one, that was bugging me, that it was going so slow, and two, that I was like, here, let me just grab a bag and I'm just gonna do it myself. I felt like, whoa, I would never have done that before I moved to Germany, but things are happening. Things are changing. So this is one thing that I'm not entirely sure if this is a difference or not. Definitely in my observations over the 3 years of living here, this is a difference. But I was surprised at how many lawn crews that we saw in the US, but I don't think I've ever seen a single lawn crew in Germany. So what I mean by that is a lot of Americans will hire big crews that will pull up with a big truck and a huge trailer behind them, and they'll be like a team of men that will come out and they'll mow and they'll bag up the grass and they'll rake your leaves and they'll do all these things things for you. Not every American has this, but we were driving around and we saw a ton of those, at least in Texas and in Oklahoma in particular. I wouldn't be surprised if it does exist, but I would like to know, I mean, have you guys ever seen that in Germany? So I have to admit, you guys, there's one thing that has been commented on our videos for the past 3 years that honestly, like, it kind of would start to drive me nuts. And I would try to defend the US. And Aubrey and I had multiple discussions about this when we were in the US, but we were shocked at us driving by construction sites for homes or like apartment buildings and stuff, seeing the timber frame construction that was being done and thinking like, whoa, that looks like popsicle sticks. Like, is that gonna blow over? And I hate that because Germans have always been commenting on our videos. I don't understand why Americans build their homes with just wood like they do. I don't know why they don't use concrete or like cinder blocks like we do in Germany. It's just so much more stable, it's better. Or they'll say, you know, the US is only doing that because they're cheap and they're making their buildings out of paper mache. I wouldn't feel safe living in those. And I've always tried to defend it saying like, of course you'll feel safe living in them. I've always felt safe living in an American home. But then we really realized, like, I guess subconsciously, living here for 3 years, not going to the US for 2 years and seeing construction and just driving around Germany and seeing all of the heavy duty construction that we see, that whenever we were driving around and seeing the construction in the US, we for the first time, I think we're seeing it kind of like through a German lens and being like, whoa, that looks flimsy, man. So I don't know where I stand now. I know it's a legitimate means of construction. I don't know necessarily that, like, you know, I'm declaring I will always live in a cinder block or concrete home, but man, it was shocking how much that kind of scared us seeing that. And suddenly I was like, hey, all you people that have commented that the last 3 years on our videos, I'm sorry that I kind of got upset. So there is one particular grocery item that for some reason just kind of almost confuses us, and I would love your guys' insight on why this doesn't exist in Germany, especially with how much coffee Germans drink, but creamer does not exist in Germany. And we've looked for it for 3 years, and that's one of the consistent things Americans that we know kind of complain about the coffee culture in Germany. You can just put milk, I get that, but these creamers that Americans always put in their coffees religiously if they don't drink it black, you don't get it in Germany. Everybody just puts regular milk in their coffee. And that's something that I'm kind of interested in. Why does that difference exist? But we thoroughly enjoy being in the US again, where there's creamers and just really getting a rich, creamy cup of coffee was delicious. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is, if you could only drink one drink for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Guys, my shirt says like, comment, share, subscribe. Do that right away. I think this video has been the longest, and I am going to end it right here. Thank you so much for watching, and see you right in my next video. Bye.